Somebody dropping any F-bombs on the call. So.
All right, the session now being recorded as of this moment.
Oh, Frank.
All right, go. Okay. Rich, you want to say anything?
Tim, I would just go ahead and start with some of the fundamentals as far as the kind of the overview of what the audience has seen. In other words,
Sure.
The workflow, the navigation.
Yeah. Sure. Right. Okay.
Your end, if you already know all this, or
no, we didn't go over this.
I know, but
yeah.
Oh yeah, we understand that. Please chime in. Anybody on your team.
Right. Okay. Well, first of all, guys, you can see what I'm pointing at here. The RCM Cloud's built up kind of in a revenue cycle flow process, if you will, with scheduling, registration, medical records, coding, billing, collections, payment posting, bad debt. Each of these is what we call a workspace in the system. We're going to look at each of these, as you can see up across the top. Of course, being browser-based, you'll notice that you can have multi-sessions going, as I do here. You don't have to just hop. You don't have to close out registration, go to scheduling, and so on. You can open up and jump from one to the other. Let's see what else. Single centralized updates managed and applied remotely with no internal IT assistance needed. Again, it's on the cloud. Easy customization of look and feel, as well as each individual user's default home pages and the work queues that they go see and so on. And we're going to talk about all those. Basically, as I mentioned, it's grouped into application areas that coincide with the revenue cycle process. Each multifunctional workspace, we're in the registration one right now, they provide access to just a multitude of information in that particular application area. In this case, we're looking at all kinds of patient information, patient index, patient and visit details, notes, actions, navigation history down here. You'll see the navigation breadcrumb trail start, productivity metrics, which you'll see here shortly, and so on. The system also uses it's collapsible, adjustable, as you can see, very easy to move around and expand and reduce real estate as necessary, depending on what areas you're working on. Each area that we're in includes a set of what we call quick action buttons across the bottom. So if I had a record up, which we're going to hear shortly, and I had it selected, these quick action buttons would be activated. And the quick action buttons let you access and utilize common functions like rebill, balance transfer, room and bed transfer, things you do, quickly for a particular record that you're working on. In other words, you don't have to go to a particular module called balance transfer or room bed transfer and open up another window. You can just do a lot of this stuff all in one all-encompassing, I guess, workspace view, if you will, user interface. The system's designed, as you can see, it's really designed kind of for today's widescreen monitors, ideally a 1920 by 1080 resolution. I talked about the breadcrumb navigation. Anything else you guys want to add before we jump in and maybe start looking at some stuff as far as?
Yeah, why don't you just call up the patient? Right, and we'll kind of start together. Yeah, while you're calling up the patient.
I'm sorry, Rick, can you say that one more time? I was kind of echoing there.
I was going to say, just go ahead and call up a patient and just look at some of the data, and then just go through your thing. We can.
Sure. Yeah, let's just look up one of our many patients here. So I searched it. Right now I'm in patient search mode, so I'm going to go ahead and hit search. It's going to find anybody with that name, and you can see we've been doing a lot of practice in here, but this is the one we typically go take a look at. So here's some patient information. I just looked up a patient that we've already gone through the registration process for. You can see some different things here. He was admitted on the 3rd of April 2017. He was discharged. Different things across the top. The patient type, inpatient. He's been billed already. Some different things like that. Here's the patient information tab, all about the person's personal information, where they live, their geographic and demographic information. And likewise, each one of these tabs, and you guys tell me if I'm going too deep here, but each one of these tabs is associated with a series of what we would call child tabs or accordion tabs. So the patient tab has its own set of tabs over here where you can go in and enter all kinds of additional patient information as you're registering a patient or as the process moves forward. You'll see that the visit tab, this is all information related to this particular visit we're on, the admit source and so on, and you'll notice that the visit tab likewise has its own set of unique accordion tabs right on down the line. The insurances that this particular patient has, insurance or insurances, you know, the primary, the secondary insurance, again, it has its own set of accordion tabs. Guarantor, is it the patient, is it a relative, authorizations, like long-term stays, how many, you know, a 3-week stay, and another authorization to extend the stay, and so on, and right on down the line. You guys want to add anything to that?
Yeah, and then just kind of go quickly. The MSP is Medicare secondary payer. The legal, we don't really need to go into legal because that has really something to do with like the state of Wisconsin. They have people that have some kind of legal or statutory issue. They're like long-term psychiatric patients.
Yeah, they're defined as forensic patients, which involve, we created the capability to actually track all the legal status information on a psychiatric patient. If they go into the court system, if they come up on a trial, if they're transferred to another facility, we can hold the bed to bring them back in. And this was all added to the base system. Along that, just as a maybe blog it in your head, you know, for another day, we also have what's called fund accounting for those long-term psychiatric patients.
And then, Tim, can we go back to authorizations, because I think this is important. I know that one of the key target markets that has been identified is behavioral health. So the authorizations for behavioral health, typically in a single encounter environment like 1,500 professional, if you need an authorization, it's for a single test or maybe a couple of tests. The authorizations in behavioral health are usually for periods of time. So you'll be so much in some kind of assessment, and there's some kind of an authorization for next few days related to something else, and then possibly on some follow-on. So there's multiple authorizations associated with behavioral health, and so that's why this entire area is devoted to authorizations. So anyway, just
and on the ambulatory side, this is Tom, that works really well with our orthopods because we've got POMP and other cases where authorizations come in the same way as behavioral health. So that's really useful on the ambulatory side. Is there keyboard navigation other than the mouse? Any shortcuts or keyboard commands?
I'd have... Sure, yeah. Yeah, I can tab it. Yeah,
you can cut, you know, those types of things. You can use the numeric pad for entry.
But to navigate to another section, it's mousing over there.
Versus an Alt-L to go to legal or Alt-G.
Right, yeah. Any kind of shortcuts or hotkeys, yeah.
Yeah, those. That's really on the client server model. We do a lot of that. This is mostly with navigating to that tab and then going in.
Yeah, I was just curious if you guys had a good solution to that, because I know our users are anxious about losing that ability when they go from the client.
Right. Yeah. And then that was I think what kind of with this whole workspace thing, and we haven't even gotten to the workspace. I think what Tim just did was a patient search. So maybe we can talk about the workspaces that are in registration, more of a workflow.
Yeah, the work queues, sure. Work queues, right. Sure. So let me go to registration here real quick. Okay. Yeah, the registration, every workspace includes a series of what we call work queues. These work queues are designed are designed around the way a particular organization typically does business in terms of in a particular work area, what groups do what in that particular area. So if we go up here, we have different little icons here. This top one is called the work queues icon. If I click on it, I would have an option between my work queues, my particular work queues that I have access to. If there's only a few out of a large group, you know, they're available on in my facility or my organization, active work queues, and then patient search, which we looked at if you want to look up an individual patient. But I'm going to click on my work queues, and it's going to change the view up here. And basically now this is like I'm starting my day, and I'm going to go and, you know, when I click this list here, you're going to see this drop down. You're going to see a series of what we call, I guess, the base set of work queues that registration currently is set up to provide. The particular client can also set up their own as they move forward and realize that you know, different work queues for different ways they do things might serve their needs even better. But you can see here, maybe today I'm going to work on duplicate patient problems or financial counseling issues, some different things down the line. Let's see here, pre-auth required. But anyway, if you select one and you go to search, every record, oh, there's none in that one, okay. Yeah, 0. You can see, of course, I picked the one with 0. See the number next to it, or how many records are in that particular work queue at this moment. So utilization review, there's 9 of them in there. Maybe today I've been, you know, my assignment is to deal with utilization review issues and go in and follow and go through those particular ones. So basically, again, that's the whole work queue concept. And as you can see, as we go through today, each one of these workspaces has its own set of what we call a base set of work queues that, you know, kind of a starter set that go in with the system. And then the organization facility, we can add more for accordingly. So I don't know if you guys want to expand upon that.
How do the items get in those work queues?
They have to meet a criteria. Like you build a...
So you have triggers.
Yeah, there's a criteria for all those work queues. For example, pre-admits, what do I in a pre-admit status? Do I want to look pre-admits? What has been authorized? What has not been authorized? What has been insurance verification, whether the insurance has been verified or not. So typically, and this kind of goes to your tabbing thing, so let's just say we're working the queue that primarily deals with authorizations. Well, in this particular example, the authorization tab is lit up. That's where you'll be. So if you're working an authorizations tab, you're going to be principally in the tab that you're working with. If you're working in an insurance verification tab, you're going to be primarily in the insurance tab. So really, this concept of moving all over the place is kind of eliminated because you have a workflow-based model here.
Yeah,
so
you're focusing it, yeah.
Yep, you're focusing on a specific task. You're assigned with that. That queue is based on anything that's going on in the system at any given point in time, regardless of who's entering it. So if you have multiple points of patient access, if you have multiple things that are going on, multiple people working queues, if certain queues are satisfied, then they could create another queue. So that whole workflow, like Tim started out, scheduling, registration, medical records, billing, collections, et cetera, it's all set up to make sure you're moving everything through the process, the revenue cycle process, as efficiently and effectively as possible. And the divisions of labor, the people who have a certain responsibility for those particular tasks, it shows up in their work queues. And all of this, as Tim goes down there, there's productivity for how many actions have worked, the number of actions, how many come into their queue, how many go out of their queue, how long it's taken, their productivity as it relates to peers that are also assigned to it. So there's any number of things that are associated with this whole workflow or work queue concept.
Right, yeah. You want to take a look at that scorecard since you mentioned it?
Sure.
Over here? Yeah, sure. So this, right, what I did is I went to this icon right here. This is the scorecards icon, and like Rick said, this is kind of these are scorecards on productivity on members of this particular department or those folks, like you say, assigned to work within this particular work area or this workspace. So I'm going to hit search, and it's going to just basically bring up, and again, this is you know, just pretty much dummy data we dumped in here from different sources we've gotten over time. But basically what you can do, you can look up and come and see by user. You can see what users in your registration team are doing, how they're doing. Here's Allison and how she's performing. You can click open up and see how she's doing on each of the particular actions under her registration efforts in terms of how many records she's worked with in the given time period up here, which happens to be 12/1/16 through 11/30/17. Number of records completed, minutes worked, and so on. You can go by work queue and look up different, it sorts it differently by the particular queues, and then break down by the individuals. So like Rick was saying, it's a productivity. It always keeps, this is always churning and keeping things real time, if you will, on what everybody's doing, how they're doing, who's falling behind. You can see if people are getting overloaded, you can break up work. Maybe you create a new, break up some of the work queues accordingly. Maybe divide up the, I don't know, pre-auth required work queues so that it's among two people, so that two people, maybe two different groups can get more done that way.
Can I manually place things in a queue if I'm unable to come up with criteria? There's just, I know I want this somewhere for someone to work on it.
No, there's no manual assignment because it's all rules based. So whatever, you'd have to give me an example of where you would want to override the system's functions to put somebody in a manual queue.
Well, somebody's overloaded, and rather than coming up with a clever rule of subdividing their queue, I just want to grab 12 of them and throw them in my person who has some free time. Okay, so that's a reassignment. So what you would do is that is just a security component. So what you would do is grant access through a maintenance application, and just say that another person has the ability to work that queue. And so that's how you do that. Okay.
Right. Yeah. So instead of moving records out to somebody else, you move somebody else into the queue, essentially, give them access to it. So then there's more than one or two or three. How many people going after it?
So a way to flag a record for something that's not covered by any queue, but someone needs to pay attention to it. So flag a record, assign it to somebody.
Would have to be based on use case. So what's the use case, Tom?
To pop down your list of queues there. Okay. So
this is just
bad address, returned mail.
Okay, now let's go to edit. Tim, just go and show some edits. That's another question. So return mail or anything along those lines. Let's go to the edit capability and registration.
Okay, where am I going to go?
Hire and edit. Register a patient. Enter somebody to show.
I got you. I see what you mean. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Let's do that. So let me think here. What am I want to fire and edit. So we're going to fire and hold on. Bear with me 1 second. Let me get here. See, I'm going to enter a new patient here just to show you. I think this is what Rick is saying here. I'll just enter. I'll just start entering a new patient here. Is this what you're thinking, Rick? Right here, right? And we'll go through and fire and edit.
Yeah, Tim. This is Rick. Your normal.
Yeah, just go through your script, and as you're going through your script, what we have is a series of wizards here. So when you have a lot of locations and you have a very complex care delivery model, you have multiple points of registration or multiple points of patient access. So what Tim's doing here is we're using what we call a wizard. So a particular registrar, because we're in the registration workspace, right, would be doing the registration. And you can see that they're all defaulted in. So this particular person, they can default in based on their point, their access point, what their normal location, patient type, service, admit source, et cetera, would be. It can be defaulted in. Of course, these can be overwritten, but they're things to make the whole data collection process much faster. All right, Tim, roll.
Right, okay. So we're going to go ahead. We're just enter her information real quick to get it. And here, I'm going to use the zip code database. I could type in her city and state as I have her, filling in information as I speak to her, whatever the case may be. But she actually lives in O'Fallon, Missouri.
Okay, let's stop here. Okay, at this particular point, we can have we can hook up a address check at this particular point to make sure that's a valid address. We currently don't have that capability hooked up, but that's one of your questions, is how would you do address, that type of thing, that we can hook this in. There's also a way in here to do financial clearance, which we'll talk to later. All of these preferred methods of contact are for creating a direct relationship with the patient or guarantor, so that you could send statements directly to them, all those types of things. So that's communication with any significant event, payment received, bill going out, insurance receipt, a payment received from insurance, et cetera. There's a whole notification engine underneath this, so we'll just keep rolling. But that's why the preferred method of contact, where it's cell phone,
statements, follow-up statements, after they've left.
Okay, let's go ahead and get that back in. I want to make her an outpatient so that we can get that edit error to fire that we have set up. Okay, so I'm going to click next. Admitting diagnosis, we're just, you can enter a free-form start here. If you don't know the code that you have set up, again, this is a codified table, but I happen to know I'm going to use 78650. She's having chest pains. I could enter some free-form as I'm speaking to her. I'm going to go ahead.
Stop, Tim. If a diagnosis is not entered, you can't do a medical necessity check. So it automatically has that there's a medical necessity check capability in this, but if you don't have a ICD-10 diagnosis code, it won't have the basis to know whether the procedure you're going to perform is medically necessary. Keep going.
Okay. So here's patient registration. Now, I'm basically just, we're calling this a pre-reg, where we have her on the phone, we're getting her basic information to get it started, and we're going to schedule her. So I'm not going to go ahead and complete the registration yet. We'll take care of that when she actually comes in for her appointment and fill in more meat on the registration we looked at earlier. So I'm going to go ahead and click next. And there's an example of an edit error, okay? Invalid service for the patient type OP. So basically what happened there is, for the back, this is an example of an edit error. It's not going to let me continue unless I correct something that is not correct or not correct in the system as far as the data we need to capture.
All right, stop. Stop, Tim. Okay, so what you said was, what if there is something that's missing? You don't have a valid data, there's a data entry issue, there's something missing in the data collection process, right? Rather than doing a work queue related to that, the actual fields or missing data are edited in real time, given where you're at in the workflow. So if at pre-admit, is it required at pre-admit time? Is it required at time of admission? Is it required at time of discharge? What is the data requirements? What are the data requirements relative to this particular stage in the revenue cycle? All those edits are fired when they're working these queues. And so you see, in this particular one, the edit was in the visit tab. And so he's correcting, and it's highlighted where the error is, and there's a hover over that tells you what to fix.
Okay, yeah, all right.
And then once he hits save, it goes back and refires all the errors again. So if you had multiple errors that you needed to fix, you didn't fix them all, or what you did fix was not adequate, the tabs would light up again where there are errors and would take you to the appropriate tab, and then field would be highlighted for you to fix. He satisfied the error at this particular stage of a pre-admit.
Right, right. So at this point, I'm going to bring her back up again. Let's bring her back up here. I want to show you. We want to take a look at insurance eligibility. Okay, so I still have her on the screen. We fixed the error earlier. I've got her on the phone. I'm going to go ahead and enter her insurance information. You could enter freeform here to start the insurance. Again, it might be from a table that you already have built. I don't know why that keeps popping up. All right. I happen to know the codes for the proper insurance we want to use here. Medicare, primary insurance is changed. Well, it's changed in this case from nothing to something. So I'm going to say yes. Okay. And then I'm come down and I'm going to enter policy number. And then and she's giving me this information. Let's just say she's had it since 01/2000. Okay. Now the insurance eligibility, at this point I have enough information here, the insurance carrier, the Medicare, of course, the policy number, group number, and so on. I can click the verify button. It's not active because we were in a demo database, but basically what it would do, it would fire out the 270, the insurance eligibility check message to Medicare for them to receive, and then to fire back the 271, the insurance eligibility results message accordingly. And let me raise this up a little bit. If the 271 comes back, if it comes back verified, this down here will automatically populate with the date and time it was verified. And instead of being by me, the user in this case, since I manually selected it, it would say it would be the code for this Medicare for this provider. And the other option, I could manually verify it here if I wanted to. So I don't know, if you, do you guys want to talk a little more about insurance eligibility at this point, or?
Sure. Can I see the history of the 271s? Do I know what date of service was verified for? Can I choose the type of service that I'm verifying, the provider I'm verifying? Can I do a search with just the SOCH in the name for the payers that allow that type of lookup?
This is Rich. I'll have to think about your last point.
Well, don't worry about answering any of them. It's just I've written this code, so I've got questions, but we don't need to talk about them right now.
But yes, and I don't know until you have further clarification on how you want to look up by SOCH. Yeah,
okay. Well, yeah. This, some payers allow, other than just names, birth dates, policy numbers. They get into some rather Byzantine rules on a payer-by-payer basis that of what your minimal search criteria or combination can be.
Let me say this much, Tom, Rich. The 270, when it's populated, we will send out and request whatever that payer or intermediary is required for us to send to them too. So if it is a SOCH, then we will send the SOCH along with the policy or group. The other thing that you need to know is that when we get the 271 back, we don't just populate what you see exactly here. If they want to send us the copay, the deductible hasn't been met, any authorization numbers, we will populate all of those discrete codified data fields as well. Mm-hmm. If the 71 fails, and the definition of failure would not from the product's point of view, but as far as the communication point of view, if it fails, it does have a timeout. You can set the timeout to X number of seconds. That we do not impede the rest of the registration workflow. We put it into its own work queue of unverified eligibility. So, in other words, so it gets trapped in that workflow as well, and somebody else can come in behind this pre-registration or registration process to further, determine do they in fact have insurance. So, a lot of, it's as you probably know, as you said, you write code, so it's a complex process that is integrated, that is in part through the registration and scheduling, pre-scheduling, post-scheduling, pre-registration, anytime it's necessary to do that eligibility check. And we can keep track and make rules such as, do you want the eligibility check to be done every time the patient presents themselves? Under what conditions do you want this eligibility check to be done, under what circumstances?
Great, thanks.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Okay. So one other thing I'm going to do here too is I'm going to, the one other thing we're going to do just to show you how the medical necessity check works is I'm going to go to the Visit tab. I'm going to go to the HCPCS procedure. This is a procedure on the doctor's order, if you will, that's saying what procedure we're going to perform on this patient when they get here. So it's 171250. It's a thorax without contrast, a CT scan, if you will. So we have the diagnosis, 78650, chest pain unspecified, and the HCPCS procedure. Now, the combination of these two will, because it's Medicare, will result in a medical necessity check firing off, if you will, when I hit the save the record. It's going to compare that to that and make sure we're medically necessity clear. So I'm going to go ahead and I got the insurance and I'm going to hit save. And it's going to come up and say, here's another example of one of the error warnings. This is a warning level edit error. It's a medical necessity failed for the following procedure. It's saying that procedure, and you guys know all about medical necessity, I don't need to elaborate it, didn't match up or won't match up medical necessity-wise with the diagnosis we entered earlier, the 78650 with the chest. So at this point, I could hit cancel and fix it. If I hit save, if I hit save, it's going to go ahead and save it and let me continue my work. And then we're going to go, when we go schedule the appointment, it's going to produce the opportunity to print up and display the ABN form, the Advanced Beneficiary Form. So do we want to go to scheduling and do that now?
Before we head off to scheduling, let's just talk about a few other things here in registration on a global scale. And I want to make a point about the medical necessity check. We store, when the ABN is generated, and we do in fact go on record that the check was performed and it failed, We create a historical record for that. There's an audit trail. The ABN is generated, the hard copy, as well as an image of the ABN and attached to the patient's record. We're using a knowledge database, a very cost-effective knowledge database that's synced up with our procedure master as well as our diagnosis master to perform this. So because we do this in acute care settings as well as clinic settings for a lot of our clients today. So that's kind of just finishing up the medical necessity discussion. While we're still here in registration, I just want to talk about some of the action buttons down at the bottom. Rick pointed out as far as the workflow. Remember, he's pointing to a patient right now, Susan. So the RCM Cloud product is designed and developed. In other words, if you are focused on Susan right now, you not only can do registration criteria and service that patient, you also, with the proper security, Tim could do a payment entry right now. He could post a payment real time, generate a receipt, give that party the receipt, produce digitized image of the receipt will be attached to the patient. There's also a function called POS payments, point of service. That is where you can use the credit card. You can swipe your credit card in stream right here with this workflow process for your services that you're going to render. So those are two key things I wanted to mention while we're in here, as well as some of the other key action items on the bottom that if you need to back out the discharge, do a transfer where there is an inpatient setting or an outpatient to inpatient observation, things like that. Again, you do not have to leave this focused area pointing to Susan and go yet to re-identify Susan in another function. You can branch right to it from this workflow right here. So, that's something to keep in mind at all times when you're looking at all of the different applications from left to right as far as registration, medical records, billing, collections, and bad debt.
Right.
All right,
right.
Jim.
Okay. You want to take a look at the patient forms imaging while we're still in registration? Just kind of show them how the forms, show them a record where the forms have accumulated against a record. Sure. So I'm going to go ahead and clear her temporarily. Let me clear her, and I'm going to search up this Tim Kiley guy. He's really a sick person, that's for sure. He's struggling bad here. Let's find Tim. Search him up.
Yeah, we're going to put him down here after this demo.
Yeah, he's ready to go. He's got to go. He's been in this hospital forever, sick as a dog. So we're going to go to his patient images, and here you can see. Go ahead, Rich. You can. That's right. Go.
No, I was just making a joke. Go ahead.
Oh, sure. But anyway, these forms are all they're assembled either. These are either forms that you scanned in at registration and saved to PDF and uploaded to the record, or are auto-produced, as Rich was talking about earlier, via system processes, ABN form, whatever the case may be, admit form, and so on. A lot of them are produced within the system and print. You can print them out and so on, and they're automatically attached here to the patient's record. So, you want to open up one and take a look at one just to kind of get an idea, or? Okay. So this is the admit form. And again, of course, this is just our template for our demo database. We, for each individual facility, they have their own look and feel, their own logos and fonts and colors and everything like that, and we set that up for them as well as part of the process. So
again, keep in mind, everyone, you're looking at a form with the discrete data, which is then attached to the patient's record. So you can print it out, you can give them a hard copy of it. You can also be attached to the patient. Same way with the consent forms. We're kind of getting ahead of ourselves, but you do see within this image table the image of the 1500 and the UBO4. And in case we forget to show it later, why don't you go ahead and pop the 1500 up?
Sure. This one takes a little bit longer. It pulls billing data, patient data. Like you said, the discrete data variety.
Forms and document management, scanning, importing of any type of image, being able to generate and create a form, a digitized image attached to the patient. We've even done it for EOBs from your ANSI 835 payment processing. We'll take the header of that report, in the batch of the ERA.
Tim, can you zoom that just a bit while Rich is talking?
Sure.
That we'll take EOB header and we'll parse out each detail line item of that EOB and then digitize it and attach it to the patient's record, which is quite well, it's well received with the group, our client base.
Have you done anything like the C84, C92s that they use for comp?
Pardon?
Have you done anything like the C84, C92 forms that workers' comp use?
Yes. All the forms can be generated paper, but most everything we do goes out via an 837I or 837P.
This one down.
Okay.
And go ahead and head over to scheduling now.
Okay, sure. All right, let's clear this. Okay, so now let's get back to Susan Brown. What we're going to do now with Susan, now we're in the scheduling workspace, if you will. So now we're in scheduling. Let me jump on my notes for scheduling. Again, this is set up a little different than the rest of them. It's not really it's set up in a calendar basis, if you will. And there's different views available that you can set up as the user, your facility can set up, and so on. And this would basically be, in my case, the way I set it up is based on a variety of either departments, all appointments, or STK. I just set up, this is really the one I built. I built this specifically for our demo that we do typically, which we're doing with Susan Brown. I built out an MRI department because remember, she's coming in for an MRI. So basically what I did is you can go in and you can build your own views right in using this application, right? Right here, you can go create your own views from scratch as a user. Again, your facility can have a bunch of views built out and assigned to different users, and so on. And you can decide what the view is going to be, what you want to call it, what resources will appear in the view, what items or services you want to be able to assign and schedule in the view, and so on. So basically with this, again, I set up an MRI department here for my own personal demo purposes here. So at this point, what we're looking at here is the scheduling again. Remember, we want to schedule Susan Brown for an MRI. We're just going to do it today. Well, let's just say she's going to come in next Wednesday, the 8th. She needs an appointment next Wednesday, the 8th. So there's a couple ways you can schedule an appointment. You can do it the old-fashioned way, find an open slot. And of course, in the real world, there'd be many more of these filled in, probably the scheduled appointments already in play. But anything you see open underneath a particular resource, provided that it's in the time slots that resource is available, again, that we set up underneath, you can go in and right-click. I could add an appointment here. It's going to bring up the wizard that Rick talked about earlier. It's a scheduling type of wizard. You can go about the process of scheduling the item or the services you want to give. Click Next, assign the patient that you want to schedule for that appointment, and so on. But what I wanted to show you here today was, this is the, kind of the standard way. The other way we have in the system is the drag and drop approach. Basically what you can do with that is, these, if you'll see over here, a couple quick pick lists, quick pick item lists or services lists, quick pick patients list. And now this is based on me right here, my user profile. These are the items or services I tend to schedule more often than others, with the most frequent appearing at the top. And it's just an ongoing thing. It just helps you to expedite. Like, let's just say I work only in the MRI department. I can just come in here and zip, zip, zip and schedule much faster. The quick pick patient list is going to show you patients that are in the system, pre-registered patients that was scheduled on. Let me close the calendar so we can see this. I click on this tab. These are the most recent patients that have been registered or pre-registered in the system, with their most recent being at the top. Now here's our Susan Brown. There would be others. Now I would find Susan Brown because I just pre-registered her. So what I'm going to do at this point, and then over here is the nursing station, and these would be for people that are already in your facility in a room, and they need to come do something. They need to go to a, maybe they need to go to a psychiatric consult or something. You could pick a nursing station and assign accordingly. So let's go back here. So what I want to do, I'm going to drag and drop the service. Let's just say 9 o'clock on Wednesday the 8th is open for Brian Stockel, our MRI specialist. I'm going to click on it. It's going to open it up and say, what item or items would you like to schedule? Now, by default, it's only the single item that I grab, but you also have the ability to schedule multiple items or services for this time period. By clicking here, you could add additional items if you want. But in this case, it's just a single MRI that we're going to do for Susan Brian. And you can see the default time, it's set up to be a 1-hour service. Again, this is all set up when we set up your scheduling resources and services, etc. So this is going to be with Brian. I'm going to click next. It's going to say, is this an individual or group appointment? We can do group appointments here and assign multiple people to the appointment, but it's going to be an individual for Susan only. Is it a reservation or appointment? If I did appointment, we would go through the old-fashioned way and bring up the wizard, make me go find her. But in this case, I'm just going to, just like to show you drag and drop, make it a reservation or a placeholder for somebody to be assigned to. So I'm going to go ahead and create the appointment, and you'll notice it's light blue, which indicates, the reservation actually. That indicates I created a reservation slot, and then I just finish it up by coming and finding the patient I want to work with and dragging her into it. It brings up the diagnosis that remember we gave her the admitting diagnosis or the initial diagnosis of chest pain. I'm going to click next. Is this a recurring appointment? No, it's going to be a single appointment. Here comes the medical necessity fail message we looked at earlier, or we talked about earlier. I can either at this point it's saying, remember, this is a medical necessity fail. Do I want to continue with the appointment? Schedule yes, schedule no, or cancel. I'm going to say schedule yes just so we can do the ABN form and show you what that looks like, the advanced beneficiary. I'm going to go ahead and say I'm going to continue it. I know that the diagnosis or prognosis and the procedure don't match up, but we're going to go with it and deal with it, whatever. I'm going to click yes. Do you wish to print an ABN form for the visit? I'm going to say yes. And before it prints that, it's going to bring up a prep message for me. This is another feature in the system you can set up. These are what we call preps. You can set these up for your users just to reminders, remind the patient, ask them a question, and so on. Okay? So I'm going to click OK on that, remind her 30 minutes early, since she's a new patient. And let's see. Hit save. Okay, where? Okay, the ABN form. Try that again. Bear with me 1 second. Try this again. Bada boom, bada bing.
I wasn't watching what happened, Tim.
The ABN didn't display like it was earlier. Let's see here. Put it there like it did yesterday. Boom, boom, boom. Yes. Save. Yes. Hey, did I say no? Okay, well, let's see here.
That's okay.
Yeah.
You need to continue on.
Right. But the ABN form typically displays as a PDF. It'll go pull in all of the relative information in the ABN form and display it. You can print it, save it. It attaches itself to the patient record. So I'm not sure what happened with that particular one.
Oh, it's a demo environment. Things happen. So
That's right.
Rest assured that the ABN will generate. It will be attached to the patient's record. It will have an audit trail. It has all that. It does work. Sorry about that. Let me fill in some other, just kind of a high-level other functionalities and maybe related to some of the delivery that you currently do. Treating this as a physician's office or a clinic, you obviously would have your test would be your initial visit, your follow-up visit. You may have a consult. All of those, you could do simple slot scheduling, or you can do complex scheduling for the future, say for pain management, for ambulatory surgery opportunities, where you require a room, equipment. You need to have multiple resources participate based upon their schedules, their availability, their overbooking. All of those things are part of the scheduling module. So because we have to meet the needs of clinics of our acute care hospitals. We have to meet the needs of the outpatient services that our hospitals do today. And then we have to meet the needs of some unique places like inpatient scheduling for long-term psychiatric patients, or IOPs, behavioral health, that market segment. So scheduling has to be prepared based upon the setup to address a variety of different deliveries of care. And we can do all of those quite nicely. A couple of high-level features of scheduling, again, as a takeaway before we move on, because we want to make sure we leave some time for Q&A, is Tim mentioned group scheduling. Lamaze comes to mind, potentially in clinic settings. Therapy sessions. Behavioral health. We use it all the time with alcohol and drug. Recurring. You can set up recurring appointments, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, Tuesdays and Thursdays. So all of that. The reservation, on recurring appointments, you don't have to key in 3 appointments. It generates the 3 appointments for you for the Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. You can cancel one or you can cancel all. You also have the ability of wait list management. That is part of a scheduling module as well. What else?
Is there anything, Tim, in no-shows, either reports or dashboards that you could show since we're here before we move on?
Oh, sure. Yeah, one thing too, real quick. If you notice here, it didn't pop up like I expected it to in view right in front of my face, but it did, as Rich mentioned, create the ABN and attach it to the patient record, and there it is. It just didn't fire like this. Like I have to go check and see why, but there is an actual example of the ABN form that displayed. It's the diagnosis against the, and here's the 71250, and here's the estimated cost for that service minus insurance not paying for it, those kind of things. So, and again, like you said, the discrete data pops in as well.
Great, so, thank you.
Yeah. So scheduling, yeah, you want to take a look maybe like at the no-show demo, the no-show dashboard, that kind of thing. Yeah, scheduling, like all the systems, all of the modules contain a lot of really good reporting and dashboards. And I'm going to show you the no-show demo, the no-show dashboard. This is out of scheduling. This is actually using the Power BI tool, and this is really, this is where Brian's really been doing a lot of great work creating these things for us. Again, it pulls a lot of data from a lot of sections and areas within the Insight CS database and brings it all together for you to view progress, KPIs, results, things like that. In a real-time basis, you can see it's interactive. You could change instead of by department, you could go by financial class. It's going to recalculate all the data and show it by financial class. You can do counts, lost revenue. You can see some different things here on the no-show demo. Every workspace, registration, scheduling, billing, collection, so on, have a number of these that are available to display. So, back, refresh that. Want to talk about it a little more, you guys? Feel free to.
I was going to have you click on the map. There's also pages on these reports, gentlemen. So there are multiple. Some of them are single. Some of them have multiple pages, and we continue to build out these types of reports. Just to give you an idea, we're looking at just bringing in a bunch of information and trying to make calculations pretty jump off the page. So we can see about how many appointments are actually been missed, what that percentage is, and also what the estimated lost revenue is. So we're always trying, being a revenue cycle focused product, trying to tie things back to dollars. And there's a number of different slicers and way in which we can look at the data and more or less pivot on it. And then at the end of the day, we always do try to make sure we have tables available of information. A lot of times people enjoy seeing the visuals, but some are skeptical and would like to see what the data actually is behind those types of things. And in the Q&A towards the end of this, we can certainly get into more of it, but I think this is a good high-level view of, we'll show you a dashboard per workspace. And just keep in mind that the functionality and really the customization here is quite endless.
Can they export that tabular data?
Absolutely.
There's an export function on the tabular data as well. I don't know if it can see it down there, but yeah, you can export anything that's in the tabular data out.
Not only can you export anything in the tabular data, but each one of those visuals actually has some other pivot points behind it to show running data. So that's certainly something that we could get into at a later date. There really is a tremendous amount of feature functionality in Power BI, but I think with our focus being on the product, we can move back to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can see that each one of these categories or areas has a variety of things you can do with the data that is producing. Okay.
Right. Let's roll it. So we did scheduling, we did registration.
Let's go over to billing.
Okay. Okay, this is the billing work queue. We're going to billing over here.
While you're setting up there, Tim, Chris or Tom, the audience, have a question. Medical records, today and tomorrow, I mean, as far as the future, today I would imagine your client base, your prospects, they're doing a very simplified coding. In other words, they're not using a 3M encoder or some third-party encoder system.
An abstract process.
Right. Most are doing their own coding. Some rely upon, some coding expertise from their RCM service bureau. But yes, no one's that I'm aware of is going out to any of the big services because they're charged.
Yeah, jump back to medical records for just a tad before we jump to billing, because we kind of just skipped over.
Well, I was going to go. I didn't want to forget.
Right.
Yeah, Tim, go ahead and launch records. Pull up the a queue.
Okay. We got, I'm going to work out there's the work queues. The OP coding work queue is typically what we look at. Outpatient coding.
Yeah, just pick anybody. We don't have to go ahead and go all the way through the process, but we want to show the breadth of the data.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
So as you can see, Tim's on the, maybe raise that screen up a little, that bottom section up a little higher. There you go, thank you. So he's on the abstracting tab. You can see the accordions associated with the patient tab. He's got full access to surgical picks, notes, physicians, procedures, all unlimited entry of this data. Charges, which is great for your patient accounting department to be able to see down to the charge level at the HCPCS code level and modifiers in relationship to the coding. Yep. Go ahead, Rick. You want to play?
Go ahead.
Okay. Furthermore, on the lower left corner on the action tabs, you see external quick action.
You kind of cut down to it, Rich.
Yes. So what we have here is the ability to, we have a link to 3M, to TrueCode, and depending on going into the future, other third-party encoding products, abstracting systems. So a sign-on, an ART, a coder can be in RCM Cloud, launching medical records, branching into their encoder of choice, doing their work, and everything that they do in that encoding system is brought back, and that populates into those fields that we were showing on the right side of the screen here off of the action of the tabs and the accordion tabs, real time.
Yeah, don't let that bus back over you. Watch out.
Yeah, hey, Rich, your phone's whacking out on us here. It's kind of cutting out a lot. I can hear you in your office, but you can't hear you on the phone. It's kind of what's going on with it.
I'll just lead on a little bit further. So let's go ahead and go to the billing tab.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, this is the billing workspace. This is where you handle, obviously, your patient accounting functions. What's neat is, I'm sure we're going to talk about here, is the integrated or built-in claims management, claims errors, corrections, and management capabilities, as well as obviously viewing billing related analytics data. We'll take a look at the we'll look at the claims dashboard, give you a look at a claims error dashboard here in a second as well. You can do billing exceptions, late charges, claim errors, work on denials, as well as scorecards, as we talked about earlier. Scorecards are in every workspace to show who's doing what and how they're performing compared to their peers, if you will. So, what do you want to look at? You guys want to look at anything in particular? We got charge capture, we got billing exceptions, claim errors. You want to go to claims or?
Claim errors.
Okay, sure. So again, we're in the work queue mode, so I'm going to go ahead to work queue, and here's like we said, the base work queues, if you will, under the billing.
Let's stop here for just a quick. Sure. Tim, stop for a second. So let's walk down. So we have a whole series of billing exceptions. So as you look at that list, so you could have billing exceptions specifically that would be assigned to or related to a biller. Billing exceptions that would be assigned to or related to a medical records person. So if somebody did not code something, there was missing codes on it, that would end up in these queues. If there was billing exceptions related to the biller, there's no charges on the account, there's any number of things, something hasn't been worked correctly or whatever in the system, it would show up on that queue. But now you can go ahead, Tim. I just wanted to say that there's more to it than just that. Late charges, there's there for late charges. So let's stop for just, I don't need to pull it up. The late charge things is for really an inpatient setting where they have multiple departments that are sending in charges. Some of them take a little while to get in. If you've already set your suspense days for 3 days or 5 days or whatever it happens to be before you attempt to run a bill and the charges are not in there yet, what happens is we'll go through the billing process, the charges will come through the system and they'll end up on a late charge a billing event and also be in this late charge queue. They may decide that they could stop it or say, well, it's worth canceling that and putting the charge on there and sending it back out. There's any number of things along that line. And then what we're going to get to is the rejected claim. So yesterday we had in a brief discussion that the rejected claim queue. I think we want to get that, select that, Tim. Isn't that what you use for claims management? Right. Okay, so rejected claims, we've passed all of our internal edits. So you have field edits, we saw that, the tabs light up red or the fields light up red, all those are the real-time things. We have pre-authorizations, authorizations missing, anything along the revenue cycle that you're supposed to have an action item, those are all taken care of. Then what happens now is the claim scrubber is invoked. And so depending on whether it's an institutional claim or a professional claim, there's additional scrubbing errors. So these are the examples where there's a scrubbing error. So you see the description in the rejected claim, it says there's the error. So you can kind of walk down through there and see principal is missing or admitting diagnosis is missing. It tells you what it is. And so it tells you what the error is. And then once you select that off of, now you can sort it by description. There's any number of ways you can process this queue. And so select one, Tim, whatever. Let's pick one, I don't really care.
Yeah, this is a pretty basic one that we can I can correct here without really a lot of research or anything. And basically, what this claim error is that the simple one. The policy number needed an alpha prefix, and so it was an incorrect entry for the policy number on the insurance. So basically, what I could do at this point, I could come to the insurance. Here's the policy, and you notice that it doesn't have an alpha prefix at the beginning of the thing. And if I click on the claim error tab, this is going to basically is going to repeat what you see up here. And then this is the resolution path. And Rich, you could probably talk a little bit to the resolution paths, but basically there's some set canned resolution paths in the system, but you're able to go in and modify those and update those according to your the facility's processes and procedures. So this tells you what to do to fix this particular problem.
Okay, so let's go into the details then. So that highlighted one is the resolution path. The one below it is the external message. So the external message is actually received back from the edit that it was fired by the edit engine, the ZerMed edit. That's the actual edit that came back. So if sometimes it takes a little bit of mapping. So they can have there's I don't know how many hundreds of different errors that can show up, can come into the queue. And what we know is once we start getting these resolution paths streamlined and documented, the errors that you would encounter, the normal errors, the typical errors, the 80%ers, that type of thing, you start to have resolution paths very, very quickly. If you want to highlight that error history, I don't know if there's error relevant notes and the error relevant notes accordion.
Not on this one. We do have a sample with some good error relevant notes in it, but not on this particular record. It was another one.
But error relevant notes is really, if you will, like a knowledge base. So if other claims were rejected for this exact same external message and indication, shows you an error relevant notes what the other billers did to fix that and correct it. So it gives you a knowledge base of what your peers have been doing to modify and correct that particular situation. So that also helps with your resolution paths and that type of thing. So it has an automatic built-in documentation, if you will, for the billers how to resolve these specific errors.
Okay. All right. Put my phone over here. Hold on 1 second.
So those rules are being run over on Zermed?
Correct.
Okay, and then how about all your medical code tables and whatnot? So your HCPCS and ICD-10s. What's your source for those?
Those are from CMS. So we have all of that are published. That goes into our master files. So we have a master files for HCPCS, modifiers, ICD-10s. All the codes are all CMS supplied codes. Those are in the master file. So that's how we would know if it's an invalid code on data entry. That's how you do all the lookups, because those are the master files. So like Tim said, you could put a free form, you can do something, it does, it looks it up automatically based on the alpha that you put in. So that's all part of that master file set. What this is just, you maybe don't have a modifier correctly entered, and it depends on the situation. In our charge master, we have some codes that are routinely used, have the modifiers. In those cases where the modifiers have to be something that's real time from clinical documentation, and there's an abstract or coding process based on the clinical information in the record, that's where the ART would say, okay, I have to put this modifier in, or the modifier is required. If they fail to put the modifier in, the Zermed claim scrubbing errors will come back and say that this particular one requires a modifier. That would be something indicated in your error code, and you would fix the modifier.
And that would go into the medical records claim, that agent's work queue.
Yep.
For them to see.
Okay. All right.
I want to point out something. This is, Chris, this is really probably future use, but look at billing event. Please click on that tab. Okay. Notice that we have the first interim, and then we have 4 continued interims. The point I wanted to make here is that, and even this is demo data, please keep that in mind, but we haven't said this yet, and I think it's important. This system is a true episodic billing event system, meaning that if you are dealing with long-term care patients, if you're dealing with the need to do recurring billing, 15-day, 21-day stays, month-end billing, and for future prospects, future opportunities, we have all of that. You do not have to discharge and readmit a patient at the beginning of a new month. As well, the collection system, the collection module, the collection application works in conjunction with episodic billing. You have best practices for collection strategies for interim cycle billing as well. You can be going after the primary insurance and self-pay with their own self-pay balance concurrently. And we'll talk more about that when we get into collections. But I wanted to point that out because I saw that on that particular tab, and I just wanted to mention that before we moved on.
That's great. We get beat up on that, so that's good to see.
Yeah. A lot of the older systems, to Rich's point, they didn't have this. They had the sense that the only way you could create a bill is to discharge the patient. So you had to have an admit and a discharge date. And that was the only way you would qualify for a bill. Otherwise, you're considered an in-house or current patient, right? So the only way they could drop a bill was to put in a discharge date, right? So what we have is an interim billing process that looks for how many times, what our recurring patient types, how often, based on their insurance, their insurance plan, how often do they bill? Every 2 weeks, every week, once a month, whatever. And based on that particular cycle, the billing process will go on. So that gives you the from through date and the date range no need to discharge the patient, and that makes, and we still have the collection cycles based on when the bill was generated. So you don't have the discharge, you have the date of bill is what you do your accounts receivable aging on, not the discharge date. So there's a whole bunch of things in your classic systems that are really a problem when it comes to managing AR and getting a true indication of where you're at. And without messing up your patient days or your number of admits or whatever, that type of cycle, that type of data, because you're admitting and discharging when they're really just a serious patient.
Does that age get reset when it moves from primary to secondary to patient?
Yep, automatically.
It sure does, Tom.
Yep.
Yeah, so we'll start moving on a little bit more here. Just keep in mind, this billing system is working in conjunction with claims management. And you need to please remember this. It's very important, is that when we generate the 837, it's as clean, we're trying to get the 90 percentile way up there as far as a clean claim rate with this integrated claims resolution capability. When a claim is resolved, when an edit is fixed, it is sent out real time. In other words, it doesn't go into a queue. You don't have to wait 24 hours. We also get 4 updates a day across the 4 time zones, depending on where our clients reside. Some may only get 3. It all depends, during working hours anyway. So that is about as real time as you can get inbound and outbound as far as processing the claims. We do all of the support for all of the claims resolution requirements. No one calls Zermed. There is no relationship with Zermed other than powered by Zermed. Everything is within the RCM cloud solution. So just wanted to make sure, point that out.
Excellent.
Now, okay, off of...
Before we go, Tim, is there anything worth showing on the billing workspace that relates to scorecards or dashboards? Scorecards I'm not worried about. Dashboards?
Yeah,
I don't know what.
Yeah, let's look. Yeah, I think so. Probably since we're in claims, this is an example of a claims dashboard that Brian has built out. Looking really slick here. Gives you a chance to see just a recap, like you said, on the number of claims for the given period that we have entered here, 11/3/11. For that, that's a long period there. 32,637 claims, average days of resolution. This is some KPI kind of information, some results information, how much you billed, how many are still in error, just different things like that. And again, like Brian said earlier, each categories has a capability to export data out. Here's the hard data that Brian was talking about. If you guys want to, if Brian wants to chime in or you guys want to chime in and expound a little more.
Sure. Could you, Tim, could you just switch between the UBO4 and the 1500?
Oh, sure. That is, right here. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So you'll see that these will quickly update. And again, this is a demo system, so we don't have the most powerful server running behind all this to save cost, obviously. But we do have, some pretty compelling information in there. And then one more thing, down below the Clean Claim tab.
Mm-hmm.
This one is kind of going to give you an idea of what we try to look for. Somebody had mentioned a clean claim rate. What you can start to see is just simply switching between the UBO4 and the 1500, you can get a sense of, at a high level, maybe where some areas need to improve. And of course, we're trending this over a particular amount of time. You can also, since we're dealing with 1500, Tim, if you were to go into just simply January and click that bar, that's actually going to further filter down that information. You can see your count at the top has changed, as well as we have the, the tabular data there on the right. And then simply clicking the January again, Tim, would bring us back out to an unfiltered view. And then if you were to unclick the 1500, we would get a sense of what the entire record set is. So it's really simple to drill in and come back out of information. And I think we can leave it at that for this particular dashboard.
Okay, we'll be moving into collections here in just a minute. I want to bring up one other point that there's really nothing to demonstrate. You'd have to see the setup, but it's called contract management. So if you follow the bouncing ball here, we're just kind of candidly talking. We have billing, we have integrated claims management, we also have contract management inside the billing system. So what that gives you is the opportunity to offer. Not everybody wants it. Some of them, some prospects, some CFOs appreciate it. Some go, oh, I can't do this. But it gives you the ability to net down AR at bill/claim generation time if you are managing your contracts and monitoring your contracts as far as what your rates are, what you're charging, what you're going to get reimbursed. We have a contract deviation analysis analytics, which you can monitor. And the beauty of all that is that it's included within RCM Cloud. It's not a $250,000 freestanding exported product that you have to export data into. It's all inside RCM Cloud. So you can set up your complex reimbursements right up to a stop loss, capitation, fee for service, percentage, DRG, per diem, ASP, whatever, both inpatient and outpatient Medicare. And commercial, obviously.
Right.
By claim type, inpatient, outpatient, UB04, 1500, by effective date, and on and on and on and on. So just another quick point to make. Okay. So Tim, why don't you go ahead and start with collections. Go ahead and go into your scenario.
Okay.
Please.
Yeah, sure.
And I'll likely interrupt you, but go ahead and start.
Okay. Well, this is the collections workspace. Obviously, you guys are, all too familiar with the collections and what goes on there. But basically, like all the other ones, it's set up with a series of baseline work queues, if you will. We have a number of them here. Again, you can break those up accordingly. I'm going to go to the self-pay A through M. And you see there's 1,267 records in there. And I'm going to look up a particular one, and we'll just talk about the first one actually on the list. When she comes up,
While we're waiting for this, collections is real time. When payments are processed, when there's a payer code determination that there's a change, if you're going from one payer code to another payer code, if a payment's been received by the primary insurance, it's time to generate the secondary. That is a real-time event that's scheduled to occur. There is no user intervention. No one in operations has to run, quote-unquote, collections. It is real-time.
Right. So in this scenario, based on after all adjustments and payments have been made, insurance and payments have been made, she still has an outstanding balance of $322, which I am going to address today as a collector. So I'm going to go to the open and pending actions item tab here. And I'm going to, let's see, just review for correct adjustment. I'm going to go ahead and perform this step. I'm going to review for correct adjustments. At this point, I'm going to examine and verify adjustments and payments and just kind of confirm that the adjustments and payments are where they need to be. And then, in fact, she does owe the $322.70, $322 even, excuse me. And then once that's confirmed, I'll go about whatever my collection process is, whether I pick up the phone and call and so on. So I'm going to contact the patient, talk about getting the open balance paid off, and let's just say she said she's going to send a check in today. And before I exit the record, I need to add a future action to review the account and verify that the payment has been received, or else add a next step in the collections process. And also, I want to mark the review for correct adjustment action as being complete. So I'm going to do this. So I got this selected. I'm going to go ahead and mark that as complete. I've done that. I'm going to add a new step. Schedule it for 1 week from today. Just say 1 week from today. She's going to send a payment today. So I'm going to schedule a new open and pending action for somebody to take. The collector, this would be basically this will define where it's going to go. I'm going to leave it as a business office manager. That's my role or my designation. The action type, I'm going to select review. The action, now again, this is a codified action code I know in my system, but I could also come here, I think, and type in review, and it would bring up anything with review. And I don't remember the number, but I'm going to review account R993. I'm going to go to the Visit tab. And I'm going to go to the Notes tab. And I'm just going to enter a free-form note. This is not necessary. I'm just going to go ahead and enter. It's going to be entered by me, the collection person. I'm just going to say, you know, just additional information indicated. Check is in the mail. We've heard
yes,
that.
it is.
Yeah, check is in the mail, right? So we'll go ahead and do that. And then I'm going to go ahead and click Save. And what will happen is, oh, shoot. Yeah, there you go. Good. Okay, so you'll notice Mary, quite contrary, dropped out of my work list here because we've gone in and adjusted, done the open and pending action, added a new one. She fell out of this list, and I've got her scheduled to appear in this particular collector's list again, but not until a week from today, when it's time for somebody to make a call or confirm, or, you know, check, review the account, make sure the payment has indeed been received, and then, you know, close it out accordingly, or do what I just did and add a next step, whatever the collections workflow process might be for the organization. So that's really a look at that, doing a collections action. You guys want to sort of expound upon that?
I'm going to talk a little bit here, Tim, and while I'm talking, why don't you go ahead and go into the denial work queue and pick your demo patient. Collections real quick is that he mentioned the word actions. What is referred to, we call it a cycle master. Just giving you a little bit of insight behind the scenes setup. The cycle master is set up. That's where you decide what your best practices. We come to the table when we come to clients, bringing how many typical steps do you want, how many days between those steps when you're looking for a payment, what do you want to occur if a payment is received, what do you want to occur if it's not received. Do you want to change payer codes? Do you want to drive this account to a supervisor, to a manager? In other words, how much focus, how much attention. So you control all that through an automated fashion off of those action codes within those cycle steps. You can set up guarantor payment plans, patient payment plans. You can do guarantor statements. You can combine visits and roll all onto one guarantor statement. You have the ability, I mentioned, I'm repeating myself now, but you can do self-pay, as Tim showed you, as well as having work queues for ranged by alphabet. You can basically set it up how you want the work queues to be assigned to which people. Everything is, quote unquote, real time. Notes, system-defined notes are generated when significant events occur. The act of an admission, act of posting a payment, generating a denial, a demand statement. So a lot of things you don't have to enter manual notes on. That's just a no, by the way, because we're going to probably run out of time and not get to that. Where I wanted Tim to go now is that we have denials. Denials is part of the overall solution. Denials are set up initially during the build of the product. You decide with the client what denials do you want to track and be on alert to collapse on immediately upon receiving that denial and assigning that denial to an entity or an area. So in this example here, is it David Arthur, Tim?
Yeah, yep, David Arthur, yep, this guy right here.
David has, so this was already decided upon that anytime a particular type of denial occurs, that it would go into this work queue, and now it has visibility immediately. No one has to work the EOB report. They don't have to make a notation of the denial. We store the history. We store the CAS reason code. We store the description of that code. We store the remarks along with that denial. Everything that can come back within that ERA transaction is associated with that denial. So the third one there, that's what triggered it. It generated the automatic action called denial, so have a means to work on them. In addition to denials, you see the tab EOB/denials within collections. We're not going to go through this in detail, just want to point out the capability. This is set up to where you have help me out here, Rick, if I get this wrong, but you have a primary insurance who has paid. You have a secondary who was billed, and the amounts are different. So the secondary has been denied. Now it's time. You need to be able to have the tools to resolve the difference, if there was a difference, and then resubmit the bill to the secondary insurance for correct billing. So that EOB denial tab is where that work is done. It basically gives you the ability to take advantage of everything about the primary, everything about what you know about the secondary up to this point, and balance it out and determine what was incorrect, correct it, and then resubmit the secondary bill.
Yep.
That's kind of the formula. And that is so very important to have that accessible to an end user working with the data of the primary and secondary that has occurred versus them going to a tablet, a piece of paper, because that's probably how 90% of the United States does it today.
Working on paper.
They're working on paper. Now, piece of thought about collection. Okay, you eventually you're going to have to do a potential write-up on self-pay. You've worked it down. If you're not getting monies on payment plans, it's time to do a write-off. Bad debt, as you see at the top of the last step, we don't need to go into it, Tim, but this is where you fundamentally decide what are the rules, what are the conditions, you can basically do a query and say, on this condition, this payer code with this balance, I want to move into a queue to set up a release limit and then selectively by security level, be able to start doing write-offs. Those write-offs occur, the adjustments are generated, GL is updated accordingly based upon the chart of account numbers that's been set up in the charge master and the payment master, the adjustment masters. And if you recover bad debt, you do not delete data, you do not purge data. It's just a simple function to be able to change the bad debt payer code back to an active AR payer code and put them right back into the mainstream collection system. That's just another, oh, by the way, we do not delete data. We do not purge data. Rick, how many of our clients have been, 15 years?
Yeah.
And have not purged data. So they have a wealth of data for analytics to go into these cards and these dashboards. I mentioned statements. I don't think I've mentioned this. Collection letters, that's part of the rollout as well. We set up collection letters as far as a lot of people not necessarily getting away from that, but statements, patient payment portal, we have that. The patient payment portal, at the end of the day, the entries that have been made to the portal can then be imported into the normal payment processing and update the patient records directly. What am I missing?
That's about it. And the patient portal, I think we covered this yesterday. Our current patient portal is really the ZerMed portal, so all the statements and everything that are created just points them to the ZerMed portal. Again, we can send this information anyway. So I think we mentioned yesterday, I don't know if it was Connect was your patient portal. We could certainly have a link off of that to handle patient payments as well.
And Tim, if you have any a scorecard to show for collections,
an accounts receivable AR summary. You can do summary category by financial class.
I don't know. I can't hear.
Sorry, I clicked financial class. I'm just waiting for it to pop in. Okay, let's refresh that. Let's go back to age category. All right, so here's age category. Again, like the other ones, you notice, like as Brian was saying, Brian, maybe you can click on different categories. You can look at it just for January. You can click on a different particular element, see the results for that element for a particular month. Every single element has export data capabilities, different things like that. Here's the rough, or the underlying data in a spreadsheet format for the report. Anything you want to add, Brian? Or I mean, you pretty much said it all earlier. It's interactive. You can click and sort what you want to see by locations. If you have multiple locations, which location you want to see the results by.
Yeah, I think at a high level, there's roughly 250 reports, I think, that are in our standard reporting package. And these are typical reporting services, paginated reports where you just have things listed out in columns and maybe a couple of different visuals on top of that. And what we discovered was it was difficult to find out which report was actually going to give you the information that you were looking for. So what we've continued to do is look at our existing report library and take some of the more compelling pieces of those reports and bring those together into a Power BI report that, again, can have as many pages as we'd like below. So think about it as an aggregate of information where we're trying to show high-level visuals of status and counts and maybe some other graphics that will kind of bring some attention to some areas within the product in terms of data or things going wrong, things going well, both sides of those things. But again, it's important to know that being a SQL Server database engine-driven product, all of the tables and relationships are managed very easily and could simply be tied into with an Excel spreadsheet. So some people are just very familiar with Excel. That's what they're used to doing. And we certainly don't want to take people out of that environment, where in fact Power BI is really an extension of Excel in many ways. So just keep in mind that these visuals will change and we can always come up with new things that are going to benefit our clients. But we're certainly not going to lose the integrity of the data nor the calculations to tie all the way back to the database tables themselves. I think we can close on that.
Great.
I think whoever that was, it kind of broke up there. I didn't quite hear you.
Yeah, we broke that. I think that was Rick. It sounded like it did something's wrong. It didn't come through.
Well, we said let's open it up for questions, or was there anything that you specifically were hoping to see, or that we may have went real quick over? You know, we're opening up for questions.
This is looking really, really good, guys. We're very impressed. I had a quick question on the reporting. We are embedded in SQL as well. I'm just curious, like when it comes to ad hoc, how robust? Because it's always that administrator who you can't get past seeing something in the same format they had in the scene or whatever. So I heard you say, Brian, you had like 250 reports, but what is the ease of use for end users to create ad hoc reporting or to add fields or create their own reports, let's say?
Yeah, that's really something that we focused on. Over the years, we've looked at different analytics and reporting tools that complement SQL Server. Dundas was one of them that we looked at as visualizations. Suffice to say, there are a number of products out there that we can use for that type of thing. What we decided to do was stay within the Microsoft Office vertical market. And while there are ways to utilize Excel, when Power BI was announced, that's when we jumped on board and said, look, it's a familiar end user interface for the majority of the business community. Everybody's on Office in terms of integration with Office 365. So it really just made sense for us to kind of remove a third-party component such as Dundas or business objects from the stack and just focus on what was going to be native to Microsoft. And so to answer your question kind of in the long way, authoring things in Power BI is very simple. In fact, anybody with experience with Excel will find themselves, pretty quickly up to speed in terms of looking into tables and bringing back rows and columns, and then starting to see what the visuals kind of show them. So there's a tremendous amount of information online. Obviously, we all know YouTube, and the support forums are actually pretty extensive, and it's a very hot product right now. So I've really not found a time when I couldn't get an answer from just using Google, So does that answer your question?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of wizardry and Microsoft fundamental understanding. You can generate whatever you need. So, I mean, for the end user to access that data, though, they're not. And within Stockholm, how are they building out their own report?
Right. What Tim's kind of gone through some of these reports. All these reports are just native reporting services reports. So what we say as far as ad hoc reporting, things along those lines, you could take any one of these RDLs, these reports, and if you have most people, you have to have some kind of training on it. So even an ad hoc, you'd have to have some kind of training on ad hoc report capability, but you can bring in these report definitions, suffice to say, and modify them any way you want. There's another way is to what Brian is talking about, Power BI, you can have data sources. So let's say you want to look at charges, or you want to look at payments specifically, or if you want to look at adjustments or something along those lines, we can go directly to those tables, if you will, and have access. That's probably the easiest. Excel will do the same thing. It's a relational database source, so you could use Excel and attach to a SQL table. So any one of the tables in this can be attached to. The challenge here is that there are a lot of tables in this system, so you have a fairly complex schema to deal with. So you can't just take somebody that really doesn't know much about anything and say, yeah, you can ask this thing anything you want. You have to have some kind of idea about the schema, and then you could use a tool like Excel, for example, and attach to the database and pull that information directly. Or there's any number of tools. Power BI seems to be something that's at least as easy to use once you've got some kind of exposure to it, to kind of do those things, because you can attach to the data sources directly.
No, and so, yeah, I'm sorry to drill down that. The reason that is because one of the main features Advanced MD has that we're dealing with is they have Advanced Insight, not unlike your Insight, but they have Advanced Insight, which is business intelligence reporting. Yeah, their business intelligence reporting, so you're able to readily, even an end user without much, DB savvy or knowing what artifact is what in the database, what table, etc., can readily create a report. But it's for a few dollars more, of course, per provider per month. And most of the requests we get, once our smart folks were to build a report, mission accomplished. So, we don't really require. The fact that we can do it is, I think, more important than anything.
Yes. I would agree.
Tom, what do you got? I know we're getting close to the top of the hour. I just want to leave some time. Tucker, do you have anything more, pal?
No, I'm good now. If I start asking questions, we'll be here for a couple of weeks.
Well, to that note, Rick, what makes a lot of sense is if we can get like a sandbox or something where we can just, our product folk can kind of peel back the layers and take a look at some things, and we can do a gap analysis rapidly. This looks really good, guys. I think we can probably go to war with this like right away. So obviously, Rick and I, we probably need to work out some details, but I'm sure that would be an easily accomplished thing. I'm excited. I think the team is excited. I know they are, and we look forward to next steps.
Yeah, I think as far as gap analysis, that type of thing, it probably something will help us, because now you have exposure to what we are saying is a revenue cycle or a patient accounting and billing thing that could be used virtually in any. We'd like to know a little bit more about your Advanced MD product, and maybe take a look at that. Doing a gap analysis is kind of like a two-way street. Yeah, we need to know both sides of the ledger to do a proper gap, so that way we can see what would we have that fits. And so that would be the fastest thing, is to take a look at the functions you have and see if we have a matching function and what we don't.
Yeah, WinPM is our product. Advanced MD is their product. That's a third party. That's not our product. That's their product. But WinPM is our product, and we're happy to spin that up in your own environment, give you full access to whatever you need, and then we can hopefully reciprocate that, and then dedicate some resource now to take a look.
Sure.
Chris, this is Rich. I have a question. Can you explain a little more on what is the Connect project, or what is Connect?
Sure. It's all so confusing. There's so many Connect named things. So we got a few different strains. You guys are very familiar with OpenVista and the Mumsters and the whole Mumps back end. You guys have what? How many joint hospitals do we have? Like 10 or something, where we have both products in now. So that's that wheelhouse. So I'm giving you a more broader scope, right? And I'll circle back to your question. So the Open Vista team, Lily Chang runs that. So she's the CTO of MedSphere, and her primary charter with her team is to, enrich Open Vista. Now, we've gone off the Vista line quite a ways where I don't know that they can even sync up with the core updates that come out anymore because they've built so much themselves, right? And that's the product you guys, we collectively as MedSphere now, are, you know that you work in that world. We have multiple mutual customers, and then the government services under Rich Sullivan. That is they are more in line with the true pure Vista architecture. We have instances in IHS, and we have several subprime businesses within just VA work, which is obviously that ship's sailing to Cerner, but there's still years worth of work to be done there. And then there's us, and like you guys, we're straight up Microsoft Shop, MS SQL backend, and we have our line of products. So our current EHR is ChartLogic 8, and that is web enabled. There's still light app that gets installed, but it's all hosted, and we have our own data center, our own hardware. We host it. We also have the Connect Patient Portal, right, which is a standalone product that is part of the current production environment, which is the Connect Patient Portal, which already has a 2015 certification stamp, the CL8 product, and the Win Practice Management product. So those three make up our production environment. And we have our fourth and final wave of 2015 full certification testing end of this month. The OV commercial product under Lily's domain has already completed that. I think they're just awaiting the red tape with ONC, but the testing is done, and they have already submitted the data. What we're working on is the evolution of that. So our 8 product with Win and the Connect portal are basically being rebranded as CL9, and then we're going to launch that out here first of the year. Meanwhile, we're building the full Connect architecture, which internally we just call 10 because it's just easier with all the Connect names out there. And 10 is an evolution, like we talked about. So it's MS SQL with also the ability to point to MySQL, our open source backend. It's Angular 4, Angular 5 actually now, .NET Core, and that is the evolution or best of breed, where we're taking all that we've learned, evolving Win, rebuilding our EHR, and the portal. Portal's mostly done because it's already in that framework, but we're combining all that into that Connect or 10 architecture, which then we're building out more, right? So on the HR front, we're building out some of the international functionality, which in turn will become the Open Vista replacement. And that is a collaboration of many folks within MedSphere. And now that you guys are part of the team, we're very excited because we're looking at this. I think we can use it in short order, and then also with the new dev, I think we can collaborate and we can get a fully integrated product to kick some ass on Cerner and Epic out there, or at least hold our ground with current products sooner than later. So does that answer your question? Sorry for the roundabout answer.
Oh, that's good. That gives us a sense of what Connect is. Also, it looked like you were wanting to do an advanced MD replacement. Is that what you'd be considering, the RCM cloud components? Okay.
Right now, yeah, like that's why we need to do that gap analysis done, because we probably have to do a few things or collaborate to, I don't know if we can subdue out or just omit displaying some of the inpatient or acute information, but I think we could probably go to war with that right away. We have, again, 98 customers. I don't know how many providers. That's like 400-ish providers, and that is about, well, we're moving them, but it's slow. But it's close to, at one point it's 1.4 million, but I know it's less than that annually. So I believe it to be around 1.2-ish right now. And for MedSphere, for the mothership, that is the biggest expense, the biggest cogs we have right now is Advanced MD. And so I'm about to walk out of this call into another one with Irv in about 13 minutes and tell him that I think we are collectively in a good place to start keeping those dollars in-house, which is wonderful.
Yep, that's what I was thinking the same thing, is that sounds like something we should concentrate on. So that's where our gap is. advanced MD, correct?
Right, near term, yes. And but I think we're going to have to, again, the gap is important to to just take a look and also arm ourselves, right? And then work out some details. And again, I think there's follow-up conversation that doesn't need to require everybody here with Rick and I and whoever you deem, Rick, to discuss, how that pricing works in the ambulatory model. We have done a lot of, there's been a lot of trial and error to get to the sweet spot there. We know where we need to be, and then we just need to kind of discuss how we get to that and, how that all works out in the grand scheme of things for RevRec, et cetera, et cetera. So, I'm happy to have that call with you whenever you're available. I am going to New York tomorrow. I'll be in New York till Thursday, so I've got time tomorrow, later this afternoon, tomorrow till about noon, or Thursday on.
Okay. Well, let's move something to next week, and then I think we have to kind of have some exposure to what what you guys are currently working with that you need some gap analysis for, so we can at least address it. So yeah.
So the question would be, Chris, is that could we see a reciprocal demonstration?
Of course.
Okay.
We'll show you everything, whatever you want. We'll give you the source code to analyze. I mean, we are one team now, so whatever you need, we're happy to provide you with.
Great.
But I think that, Rick, if it's okay with you, I think that me being out of pocket shouldn't affect the timeline. So if we can align some of, like Tom and others to coordinate with some of your folks to make that happen, at least on the product/developmental level, with our product management, not necessarily the sales team, but the product folk, or on my side would be the ones doing that analysis. So if you have, whoever they should reach out to, if we can get the ball rolling there, so we have some progress by next week. And again, I am very respectful of your all timeline. Of course, everyone has their own priorities going on outside of this venture, but it's a huge opportunity.
Yeah. Well, let's send the invite be to myself, Chuck, and be Dan Canoyer.
Okay.
Product type discussion as opposed to feature functionality or sales opportunity.
Can we, and is there any way you guys had a demo environment you could spin up, and we'll do the same, and then we'll get that that reciprocal demo going. But meanwhile, if you could, whomever could, get something going, we could just get in and poke around to something. That'd be wonderful. If it's separate SAM.
Yeah, we're showing a demo environment here, and I think probably what we could do is, obviously, I mean, you can do it. Brian is on the call. He could certainly set up access to this demo environment. We just need, usernames and passwords to provide access. And,
that'd be fabulous.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really not a big ask, guys. All I would honestly need is just a list of names, and I can go ahead and get started on that and get it to you guys probably by mid-morning tomorrow.
Perfect. That'd be wonderful. And then again, like I said, I'm not anything I would ever ask you guys for. I am happy to reciprocate on any level. We're you all don't know us yet, but we're transparent to a fault, I think. So even the Connect code we're working on, before we were basically chartered to kind of take it to the finish line, we were going to basically take all of our source code and just hand it over to GSD, the Government Service Division, to work out a RETA. But we're just going to maintain that, and we're going to collaborate with their product folks. So anything we do here, it all goes to the same bottom line now. So we're happy to facilitate whatever you need on the EHR as well, guys. If you want to take a look at our because I know you might go to war and get into your own sales avenues where you need a solid ambulatory solution where OB is a little bit too cumbersome, perhaps. So
right.
I think there's reciprocal opportunities there as well. And our portal, as far as dependencies, I mean, you guys are welcome. I mean, that's maybe further or midterm versus near or far, where you're even welcome to engage with our portal to offset any other third-party IPs, just so we keep as many IP source solutions at play as we can.
Okay. So
I'll send you the email, and then I will I'll coordinate with the team. Tom's obviously a key stakeholder in demonstrating, because correct me if I misunderstood you guys, but what you want to see first and foremost from us is our WIN billing scheduling demonstration first. Yes?
Correct. Yeah, for
okay.
example.
Yep, so we'll get that rolling, and then I'll get you the list of names to get demo access.
Perfect.
Well, it's exciting. We are extremely excited because looking at you guys where you're at, I think we can fast track a tremendous amount of lifting we were going to have to do in a world there wasn't a stockle involved in it. So this is just wonderful. We're excited.
Great. Good deal. All right. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks.
All right, bye.
Thank you. See you guys.